Since the age of 13, when I cared for 30 youngsters, washed and scrubbed for them and tucked them in for night, I dreamed to have babies of my own. Love is something I had to give, Joan Crawford wrote in her autobiography, A Portrait of Joan. During the 1930s, there were two people named Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford, the world-famous actress, and Joan Crawford LeSueur, her niece. They maintained a close relationship with each other before she was taken away by her mother, Cassia Haraldi, in the aftermath of her parents' divorce. Joan Crawford LeSueur was born on December 2, 1933 in Los Angeles, California. She was the daughter of Hal LeSueur, Joan Crawford's older brother, and his wife, Cassia. She had been born prematurely at 2 pounds. They named her after her aunt, Joan. I was devoted to her and her mother, Cassia, Joan said. I called her Joni Pants. By this time in Joan's life, she had already suffered multiple miscarriages while married to Douglas Fairbanks Jr. and wanted a child desperately. When Joan wasn't busy filming, she was throwing parties for her niece Joni's chauffeur, or even the neighborhood children like Margaret Sullivan or Fred McCurry, whom she was friends with. These were elaborate parties, including live entertainment, ponies, pool parties, and ice cream parties galore, she says. By the time Joni was born, Joan's romance with Franchitone was in full swing. Magazines even read, quote, "When Franchitone took up his option on Joan Crawford's heart, he was resigned to sharing it with a rival. The rival was a chubby, blonde mite, Joan Crawford LeSueur, named her famous aunt and the apple of her eye," end quote. Joan would take care of the baby for several months a year at her Brentwood home and take her to set often. Joan Crawford went so far as to have an additional wing built on her home, completed with a full bathroom and bedroom for her niece. Joni grew so fond of her aunt that she even asked Joan to buy her matching clothes, and she did. It is such fun preparing for her arrival, and having the baby in the house gives it a new brightness, Joan said with Franchitone. During these times, her and Francho were also trying for a baby, but Joan endured another miscarriage. She describes this time as difficult and lonely. She said she had no knowledge of basic pregnancy due to her lack of education and was working long and physically tough days on set. During this time, little Joni also made her debut in the MGM film Maytime as a maypole dancer. When word got to Joan her niece was in the film, she quickly rushed across the studio lot to watch her niece perform in admiration. In 1935, Joan's brother Hal and his wife Cassia divorced. While Hal stayed in Los Angeles, continuing down a questionable path, Cassia took Joni and left for New York City. Joan did not want to lose Joni and even offered to adopt her. Her brother Hal wasn't opposed to it, though his ex-wife Cassia refused. Joan was crushed on what losing felt like a daughter and said it left an emptiness in her heart. Though they tried to keep in contact, they eventually drifted apart. Ultimately, Cassia would rename Joni Joan Lau after her new husband Charles Lau in 1936. Joni would go on to marry a writer named Bernard Simon in September 1958, but would eventually remarry in 1969 to Donald Fuller. They had a son together named Scott. Surrounded by film and theater her whole life, Joni took to the entertainment industry. However, she did not receive much success. Her most notable role was a dance extra in the 1964 Barbra Streisand Broadway play, Funny Girl. Sadly, Joni would endure personal issues in the 1960s and 70s, predominantly struggling with alcoholism. Joan would send gifts to Joni and her son Scott as he grew up. During these troubled times, her mother Cassia wrote, saying to Joan, "You are a wonderful woman to even have any interest at all after all her antics. Charlie and I want you to know we appreciate and value your friendship." As well, Joni did attend the funeral of Joan Crawford in 1977. Joni died at the age of 66 on December 15, 1999, in Englewood, New Jersey. She was the closest living blood relative of Joan Crawford at the time, and now that goes to her son Scott.